It's important as people, and when I mean people, I don't mean anybody of any particular tribe or group, but I think it's important for us as people to come together for the efficacy and the efficiency and the overall well-being of society, right? And I think there are things that can benefit society overall, regardless of religion, creed, gender, political beliefs, personal beliefs, that can really go to emphasize how great it is to, expound upon things that are efficient, that do benefit society as a whole. Because I think our number one problem as a society, and especially within the preparedness community, is the division. And we see this across the spectrum. And I think, unfortunately, for the preparedness community, we are the most undecisive and, unfortunately, most divisive community out there. We definitely hurt ourselves more than we could ever help ourselves. And that's just the perpetual nature of this community. So I'm hoping by doing this podcast that we can at least come together and have the conversation about not only efficiency and efficacy of efficiency, but preparedness as a whole. So trigger warning, it's going to offend a lot of people, but I think it's important that we understand this narrative and we understand these concepts so that we can truly come together and make the world a better place.
A Wisconsin state senator is drawing new outrage from Americans over her shocking remarks on the state's Senate floor. Just listen to this Democrat's fiery response about the spread of crime from big cities to quiet suburbs.
It would be nice sometimes when some of these policies are made, if some of the people that were being directly impacted were being brought to the table. Because to say that these additional police are needed because crime is spilling out into the suburbs, what about these babies who are being lost right in their own cities, the suburbs? Because they don't know a thing about how life is in the city.
I challenge you, find today, when you turn on the stations, sit on one station for 2 hours, and I don't know how many commercials you'll see, lay 8 to 5. 2 to 3 out of 5 have mixed race couples in them. That's not by accident.
Of course it's not by accident. It's part of the plan to abolish whiteness, as the Marxists openly admit.
I think it's really, really important that we understand what whiteness is.
It's sinful. It is a sinful, violent identity construct and culture. Because, first of all, whiteness emerges as a construct always in opposition to that which is not white. That's the way it emerged. It's an oppositional construct. And as such, it is a construct that is always denigrating and dehumanizing of that which is not white. In anything, any ideological system, structure, construct that is denigrating, dehumanizing is violent. And so it's a violent construct. It's sinful.
America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness on full display.
See, part of the challenge around whiteness is that it totally skews our view of everything.
Whiteness is a cult, and they will always come to the defense of their cult members.
I think that white people are committed to being villains in the aggregate, right? They're so corrupt. Their thinking is so morally and spiritually bankrupt about power that they can't they fear viscerally, existentially letting go of power.
Opinion, isn't the right decision just to let parents choose?
I think the right decision is to allow the elected representatives who were elected by those parents to enact administrative law, to make common sense policies to protect the children, and for them to listen to the science as it's collected locally. I don't believe it's the right idea to do what DeSantis has did in Florida, which is to make a mask mandate ban, which, by the way, 70% of Republicans disagree with his ban on mask mandates and defunding school systems who are in opposition to his executive action. And a judge recently ruled that
Iowa.
Governor DeSantis, that DeSantis in Florida was without legal authority when he used an executive order to limit a governmental entity that exists by statute. If you want to start making executive orders to restrict other governmental agencies, go through statutory processes through your legislature.
So let me ask you a question. First of all, I love what DeSantis did, and I love the idea
but it's
of
illegal.
Coming in. Well, there was a judge that is rehearing. I think he actually just won on that. But I will yield to this, that there was an Iowa decision that just said where a judge said what happened in Iowa was unconstitutional. So there are a lot of rulings there. I will give you that it's an open-ended question.
And while it's easy to say that the political happenings and the discourse from the media, from what's going on, let's just take in the United States as a whole, while it's easy to completely write off those narratives, those concepts, and say that that's not applicable to us because we are, in preparedness, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. As I'm about to show you, we are going to see very similar concepts and divisions within the community that espounds to be different from what's going on in the overall political sphere. Let's take a look.
So now, us fear-mongering content creators, YouTube creators out here, what are we saying now? Go prep. The time to prep is nearing an end. Eventually, you are not going to find what you need no matter how much money you have. Because I honestly don't think that we have enough product right now in our country to satisfy everyone's needs for the next 6 months to a year. It's got to be impossible, all right? I'm not a proponent of telling people to go into debt to get things. However, if you don't have anything stocked up and you do have a little bit of room on one of those instruments that you slide and you get stuff and then you have to pay it back, and I'm not saying it because I'm really not a proponent of it. I don't want to tell you to go out and get into debt. But what I would do is if I had nothing right now, if I only had a week's worth of food right now, I would take my credit card and I would go out and I would buy as much stuff as I could with that credit card and then worry about paying it back later and or pay it back as soon as possible. Because I think that the time is right. The time is not to think about it anymore. The time is to take action and go make sure that your family and yourselves are taken care of.
As Christians, we're taught to, help our neighbors, to lend a helping hand. However, we can only do so much. And most of us, we've talked to our family members, to our friends, we've talked to people in the past to try to get them to, do their own prepping, to actually prepare for what's coming. We have talked to people about current events, about the national debt. We've talked to people about other things that could happen and tried to suggest, tried to work the conversation around to planting the seed in their mind that, hey, you should do something, you should prep. However, the unfortunate reality is that no matter how much we talk, no matter how much common sense we use, it doesn't really matter because most people aren't going to do anything. Most people aren't going to prep. And in all honesty, when we're talking to these people, you can see in most about everyone I've talked to face to face, and you're looking in their eyes, you can see in their face that they had this, you're stupid, you're paranoid, nothing's going to never happen. It says in the Bible to help others. However, in my opinion, like I said a minute ago, in your opinion it might be different. However, in my opinion is that if I've tried to talk to these people, I've tried to reason with people, this YouTube channel, my website, indecreepmore.com, I've done all kinds of things to try to help people to get prepared. And the people who haven't taken that advice, they deserve to suffer. But for me, anyone I've talked to, tried to reason with, and who has looked at me with that, you're a paranoid psycho look, then that person deserves everything they get. They deserve the hard.
Did you vote for this? Did you vote for these people that vote for this? Anyway, I just want to remind you that you can cheer for things or be against things. The bottom line is, I'm going to rock your world, because I know that some of you are like, oh, you're just a Trump supporter. Maybe I am. But you know what? The government still doesn't give a damn about you. Yeah, I said that. I'm going to get political. Anybody that thinks yesterday was a good idea, thinks that the things that are going on are good ideas, I hope you have plenty of spam on your shelf. I doubt you do. I would say most people that are very critical of people like me don't even know how to grow a tomato plant. I have figured that out. So that's why I typically don't waste my time arguing with you folks, because you have less skills than people like typically. Okay, I better be politically correct. Typically have less skills. You're not working on anything, because when somebody tries to argue politics as opposed to speaking reality in terms of whether they think the government actually gives a crap about you and your rights, they're not doing anything to help themselves. They really think that these people are for them and coming to help them. See, so you're dealing with people that are on like another totally different planet. So here's what I'm going to say. And I apologize for sweating, but see, I've been up for hours working with animals and heat and doing all kinds of stuff outside. So if you have not started preparing by now, it's too late. Does that mean you shouldn't give it an effort? Does that mean you shouldn't try to do what you can? Does that mean that there's the one person out there that can go and start today and not stop and still do whatever needs to, yeah, I mean, there is always that small percentage, but I'm going to tell you right now, I do believe as of yesterday that if your britches aren't on fire, to do everything that you can to prepare yourself. And this isn't just about putting spam or canning potatoes or getting seeds and paying off debt and doing all of these things. This is also about your mind. This is also about your soul. And this is also about your heart. Because
value. So, when you go and buy a gun and ammo, you're going to buy a gun for $500, right? And it's going to sit in your closet. It doesn't shoot right. You don't really go to the range. You only got it for protection and you haven't needed any protection. You go to sell your $500 gun, you're going to get maybe $200 to $250 if you're lucky. And I bought all these firearms because I was told by other preppers that you have to have firearms. You have to have guns to keep yourself safe. Well, you only need one to keep yourself safe. And then when I got these guns, these guys going on some sort of bromance firearm rampage were telling me not only did I get the wrong gun, now I have the wrong ammo for the wrong gun. Like, for instance, I got a Maverick shotgun, and instead of saying, you need this type of bullet, they asked me what I bought the shotgun for, and I was like, personal protection. And they were like, well, then you bought the wrong kind of shotgun and you have the wrong kind of shells. Well, that tells me that the fact that they asked me what type of ammo that I purchased, instead of saying you need this type of ammo, they were asking me so that they could correct me. Maybe they had some sort of thing where they needed to feel superior to me, but it didn't matter what my answer was going to be. It was going to be the wrong answer so that I could be corrected. So just be careful in that case, and make sure that you understand that your firearms are not going to appreciate in value. And also remember that you can only carry so many firearms. If you are in a bug out situation, you need to get out of town, you can only carry so many firearms and you can only carry so many bullets. So if you have 20 firearms, you are just a hobbyist. You're not you can't use your armory of firearms as an excuse to become a prepper and just spend your money on stuff. That is, it's all opulence in a backward form. And if you believe that, if you have beliefs that everyone is going to come after you because you're so special, you have some issues with your ego. And if you think that the military and the government is going to bypass the Amazon warehouses and the Whole Food distribution centers and the farmers and the cattle and they're going to go for your specific stockpile intended for one person for 10 years to feed their entire army, it's time to work on your logic, because you're not thinking logically if you think that everybody's going to be coming after you. Now, if you've gone out and you've told all of your neighbors, and you live in a bad neighborhood, and you've told all of your gangster, hoodlum, bad neighbors that you have 20 years worth of food in your house, and you've got an armory of guns in your house, and you've got solar and gas generators and farming equipment and extra seeds, well, then you're just dumb. Like, you shouldn't have been telling everybody that. Now, I'm here on YouTube, but you guys, you don't know what I have. You see what I want you to see, and I tell you what I want to tell you, but I'm telling you, your firearms are not going to help you very much, and they are definitely not going to appreciate in value. And if anyone tells you that they will hold their value or they will appreciate in value, they're lying to you, or they're lying to themselves, and they believe the lies themselves. I'm telling you from personal experience, I have bought and sold many guns, and I have lost money every single time. Buy one, learn how to use it proficiently, and you are good to go. You don't need an armory.
Again, I really can't make this stuff up. This is just a fraction of what's out there on both sides, both from the political happenings that are non-preparedness related, and as you can see from the preparedness community as a whole, the division. And the division is what keeps us from efficiency. If we cannot collaborate with other people because we don't like something that they said, or we don't like a belief system, and we refuse to even engage because we see them as lesser than, or we see them as not even worth the conversation, well, we are no better than the things that, we claim are going out on the outside. We're no better. And in fact, within this community, I think it's worse. I think the division is way worse because of the number one, the hypocrisy, and number two, just the lack of efficiency. And this is starting to come up more and more. I mean, you're seeing channels that are going after the mainstream processes because at the end of the day, it's true. The division couldn't be more real. The incentives are not about preparedness anymore. The incentives are about monetization, cash flow, views, like any other business and or organization. And while I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, and while I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with anything that was mentioned in this video, I'm just presenting the facts, the truth. So those are the issues, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least bring forth some solution that I think most everybody can get behind. And if not everybody, at least a majority, to enact legislative change that would help and make the lives of everybody better. And I can think of one thing we can do right now, whether it be on a local or federal level, that could really be a game changer for everybody. Let's take a look. As you can see with this piece of legislation that was passed and approved in Maine, it gives the citizens of Maine the inherent right to grow food. Now, I know many of us think, well, this should be a common sense, this should be a common sense initiative. And I think, historically speaking, I think that's one of the reasons why it was not included in the Constitution, because back in the day, in the 1700s, when the Constitution was created and enacted, if you didn't grow food, you died. It was such a part of every day. It was like, well, should you have the right to wash your clothes? Should you have the right to clean your body? Like, well, if you don't, there's consequences. So I think it was such an everyday aspect of life that nobody would even have thought that anybody could encroach on that, because there were no grocery stores, there were no fast food places, there was not this infrastructure in place, and so this this idea is now considered to be a novelty. And I think if we could enact this in more states and nationwide, that would be one solution-based initiative that could help, especially when it comes to the food situation, going on here in this country and abroad, I think that it would be, it would definitely be a game changer. There's no doubt about it. And if you look at the people that are lobbying against it, it's big food interest groups, big corporate conglomerations that provide food to the masses. And I wonder why they would be so worried about, the small homesteader. I'll let your thoughts on that permeate. I won't touch that subject matter at this time. But ultimately, this is just one aspect that we can just take the division and groups aside that I think most people can collaborate on, right? I think you can get people that are not into preparedness. I think you can get people that are into preparedness. I think you can get liberals, conservatives. I think you can get all different types of group of people to enter into a majority like we saw here, 69-31, to approve and enact such legislation, which we know is important because as we saw with Rashad with the Young Turks, talking with Charlie Kirk, that clip, it is about the legislation and engaging in the political process that makes them so successful on the left. The reason why the left is so successful is because they do go through the processes in order to enact governmental change. You can't say the government's not effectively working for somebody. There are some people that are happy with legislation when it's passed. If they weren't happy, they wouldn't push for it. So again, these are just different concepts that I think we need to bring to the forelight and at least have the conversation about, and I would not vilify anybody for their beliefs. I would not say, and all these people that that I've presented here are people that I've tried to have conversations with, that I have reached out, that I have emailed, that I have messaged. Now, it's clear that they think that the opinions of others, depending on who they are not worth the discourse, and that's fine. That's their prerogatives. But I think that if we look at it realistically, that is the same hypocrisy that's perpetuated by the very entities that they claim not to like, that they claim to dislike and attempt to discredit. Again, you can't make this stuff up. So there you have it. I hope this podcast was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And let's have the conversation. Let's talk about these concepts. Let's try to be better. Let's try to look at everything from a solution-based lens. I hope you guys have a good one. And as always, guys, long live the Republic.